As a pair of University of Pennsylvania grads have put together a company that looks to better forecast how coastal storms can affect businesses, property owners, and more who are living or working on the water. Albert Slapp is one of the gentlemen that came up with the idea. He is the president and CEO of Coastal Risk Consulting, and he joins us here in the studio. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks. So we created Coastal Risk Consulting, which is a technology company. It has the word consulting in it, but it is a tech company, in order to get actionable data and analysis to individuals, to businesses, including small businesses and government, at the property level of what they're facing now and what they're going to be facing in the future from coastal climate impacts. So flooding is just one of it. And there's really three types of flooding that we look at. We look at tides and sea level rise from climate change. We look at heavier downpours and more frequent and serious storms, as well as some other factors. But one of the things that's really important to point out, Dan, is that for those who don't live in some of these low-lying coastal areas, is that the flooding is here today. This is not some dystopic future that we're talking about. If you go to Norfolk, if you go to Annapolis, Atlantic City, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, of course, the Gulf Coast, today, during the king tide season, you have a great deal of non-storm sea level rise tidal flooding today of 2008. And the movie The Big Short, Michael Lewis's book. And we have been saying for a long time, there's another black swan, and it's called climate change coastal impacts. And we say that because we know, not believe, not think, but we know that many of these homes' mortgages will not be figuratively underwater; they will be literally underwater. So we've been preaching that for a while. Last week, Freddie Mac the research arm of Freddie Mac came out with a report saying the exact same thing.
You mentioned Sandy. What kind of information were you able to glean off of that storm as well?
Right. We learned, I think, some important lessons. Inches matter. Everybody says, well, I can wait, these predictions of a foot, 2 feet, it's 2030, 2045, 2050. I've got plenty of time. But what they don't realize is that just inches mattered in terms of whether the subways were going to get inundated or they weren't going to get inundated. And that made the domino effect was tremendous. So when we talk about sea level rise, even though it's a fairly slow process, although it rapidly accelerates, it's an exponential curve. According to all the scientists, it's an exponential curve. But certainly in the next 30 years, it's a rather slow process. But the inches matter because, as I was saying about Halloween, is that the storms ride in or have the potential to ride in on the highest of the high tides. So the high tides with sea level rise can add 3 or 4 feet to the water level, and then the storms come in on top of that and wave action, and you've got a pretty serious situation in the world. But I wanted to get back to a point you made, and we try to, when we talk to local governments that are doing top-down projects like Miami Beach with their pumps, we call that top-down. But it's not going to fix it for everybody. And what we believe is that orchestrating the top-down and the bottom-up, orchestrating that people have personal responsibilities, even if you put it up a step or two, even if you put a curb, a berm, a backflow preventer, anything to help yourself. And people are going like, well, I don't have a lot of money for that. I understand. But when you get flooded, it's really, and your insurance doesn't cover it, it's really going to be a problem. It's a draft ordinance. It's in council now. Talks about when you do any major renovations, you're going to have to raise the base floor elevation of the building, and new buildings will have to be higher. Right now, the codes of most, I would say all cities that I know about in the United States are retrospective looking. It's like driving down I-95, looking in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
And they can even, in Miami Beach and in Miami, you can still build a building with an underground parking lot.
It's amazing. It's a pleasure meeting you. We'll have to have you back to talk about this, because this is something that obviously we need to keep a closer watch on. Thanks, Albert. It's nice meeting you. Great to meet you.
Okay.